All right, welcome back to the New Frontier Playbook. I'm Scott Phillips, and this is episode 2 in our economics track about a future economy in space. This one is price check. What's a cup of coffee in space cost? Well, let's check it out. So, how much will that coffee in space actually cost? In an astronaut economy, which we just talked about, the cost is really zero. Depending on how many coffees are available, an astronaut gets to have one whenever the schedule says they can, or however many a day they're allowed to have. That's the astronaut economy. Astronaut economy. But in a market economy, it's a little different. The market economy, the cost of a coffee, you're going to pay for the cost of your coffee, and it's going to include the cost of the inputs as well as the service required to serve it or prepare it for you. Now, the inputs are kind of interesting. What goes into a cup of coffee? Well, water, that's a big one. Coffee grounds, that's probably clear. Milk and sugar, really those are it. There's other fancy things, syrups and other flavorings, but if we're just looking at the basics, it's water, coffee grounds, milk, and sugar. Now, there has to be a supply chain for each of those ingredients. On Earth, we take it for granted, but in space, it's either going to have to be shipped up from Earth and transported to someplace where there's an economy in space, probably at a Lagrange point, someplace in between the moon and Earth. That's kind of what they've talked about when they talk about settlements in space. So, the cost of transporting these ingredients to an L5, let's say, location, a Lagrange location. And if it's not transported from Earth, it has to be brought from someplace in space. If you think about the water, it has to come from the moon or asteroids. It has to be mined, processed, captured, brought, transported, and brought. And so what all that means is we actually don't know what the cost of that water in space is going to cost when we actually try to supply a group at a colony or settlement in space. But we know it's definitely not going to be as cheap as it is here on Earth. So then there's the service. Let's say you get the water, you get the coffee, you get all those ingredients, the milk, the sugar, what have you, either transported from Earth or grown in a colony or a settlement or shipped from someplace, processed. Who actually prepares the coffee and serves it? Their cost of labor has to go into it. Is it self-serve or is it at a cafe? So the input costs are part of this too. So price check, the cost of coffee in space, it's going to be pretty expensive. Now on Earth, it's probably $5 at a Starbucks, and that's kind of pricey. And you can make it on your own for 10% of that or 20% of that. But in space, it's going to be 10, 20, 100 times more expensive. And there's probably no way around that. It's going to be $100. It could even be $1,000. We just don't know yet. When we think about an economy in space at scale and maturity, so prices have come down to some kind of an efficient production level. But those are the dynamics we're dealing with. Not only that, it includes everything. Everything in space is going to cost 10 to 100 times what it would cost on Earth. So orange juice, a laptop, jeans, a pasta dinner. Whatever consumers need and use and consume, and it either has to be shipped from Earth or made with a supply chain to make it out in space. That's what goes into a market economy. And then the prices, whatever it costs, has to follow along and be transmitted to the price itself that people are going to have to pay for that good or service. Same thing goes with industrial goods, whether you're making rocket engines or solar panels. They're going to be dramatically more expensive to make in space than they are on Earth. And that's kind of the dynamic that we're dealing with. So really everything in that future economy in space is going to be 10 times to 100 times more expensive. And I don't think we've really grappled with that. No one's really described that. I think the assumption is it's just going to be the same cost as it is on Earth, but it really isn't. And to be a market economy, not an astronaut economy, prices have to follow the cost. So that's what we're dealing with. And what we don't really know how to do is how do we conceptualize what that economy is and what it looks like. There's not been a lot of research or development into that question. And that's what we're going to explore next. In our next episode, we're going to talk about what we think of as an economic conjugate. All right. So as always, we end with a support request. Your support is helpful. tell people to subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate subscribers to get the word out and have these ideas put to the test. The content is out there at a website. It's newfrontierplaybook.com. You're welcome to read ahead. It's free. You can join our email list. That would be nice. It's free. You can buy the author a beer. Donate. There's a donate function. And if anyone at all knows Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, let them know and ask them to take a look and see if they'd be willing to write the foreword for a future book or even just help us do the video. Anyway, that's our support requests. That's it. Up next, we're going to talk about what an economic conjugate is in space. All right, everyone. Thanks.